Donald Trump has been criminally charged with plotting to overturn his defeat in the US presidential election of 2020. The most serious legal threat yet to the former president as he campaigns to return to the White House. He's charged with 4 counts in the 45-page indictment brought by special counsel Jack Smith. The charges are conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of and attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against the rights of citizens. Our Washington correspondent Sean Dilley reports.
He's the first president to be charged with a federal crime. But if previous cases are anything to go by, Donald Trump's third indictment is only likely to boost his popularity with Republican voters. The charges he faces, though, are serious. The 45-page indictment accuses the former president of knowingly spreading false claims about election fraud to trick and persuade states into helping him overturn the election results.
The attack on our nation's capital on January 6, 2021, was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election.
Donald Trump responded by posting a campaign statement on his social media network, Truth Social, likening his prosecution to lawless persecution in Nazi Germany. Shortly after charges were announced, he sent a campaign email vowing to continue his campaign for the White House. But Thursday's hearing here in Washington, D.C. is all about the crimes Mr. Trump is accused of committing in the 2 months following the 2020 election. He's already been charged in 2 other unrelated cases. He's due to face trial in New York next March over crimes he's alleged to have committed in relation to payments to a former adult film star. In May, he's set to stand trial in Florida over claims he unlawfully held onto military and other classified documents. For now, it's all a question of time. In other cases, Mr. Trump has tried to delay until after next year's elections. But prosecutors in this case say they want the trial to go ahead as soon as possible. Sean Dilley, BBC News in Washington.
And Sean joins us live now from Washington. So, Sean, this, as you say, is the first former president charged with a federal crime. He is due to appear in court on Thursday, so all attention on that now. He is expected to appear in person, isn't he?
Yeah, that's the expectation. Sometimes there is an option to appear virtually, but sort of our understanding is not only that there's been some security wrecking involved, but Mr. Trump was known, certainly from the New York case, to actively be seen in that environment. And as we've seen, as we heard from the report there as well, he's quite known to use these appearances and the situation that he's in for campaigning. And the evidence is from previous cases that he actually sees a boost in his popularity when he does.
In terms of this trial, this case, how long is it expected to last for?
Now, I would say it's how long's a bit of string, but theoretically the prosecutor, the special prosecutor, Jack Smith, who's prosecuting for the United States, said that he would be seeking what's called a speedy trial. Without getting into the details of the Sixth Amendment to the United States Constitution, that broadly means that a defendant, not the prosecution now, a defendant normally has the right for a trial to be done within a certain period of time. Now, ordinarily, under legislation, that would see from the date of what's called the arraignment, so that's when the defendant appears for the first time, has the charges read and is entering a plea. That would normally be 70 days, so theoretically that would be in October. Very theoretical, though, because that's a right that the defendant has, not the prosecution. So they can certainly say we're ready to go to trial. Looking at the unrelated, another case that is also a federal case prosecuted by Jack Smith, Donald Trump's legal team said, well, we simply need time to prepare for the evidence. And the judge in the other case agreed to an extent. Donald Trump and his legal team had attempted to delay that until after the election in November next year. The prosecution said they wanted to crack on with it as early as December this year, and the judge kind of almost like Solomon's baby had to say, well, hang on a minute, you know, one timescale is unrealistic, so is the other, and she's set the trial date in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case for May, and we're likely to see those kind of wranglings in this case too.
Okay, and in terms of Trump and his reaction, we heard his reaction there in your report. He says he will continue to campaign, he will continue in his mission to become the next president of the United States. Just to explain to our global audience the impact this all has on his ratings and his popularity.
Well, we need to split it off into the ratings and his popularity within the Republican Party and in the country more generally. So we can show that he's, you know, from the last election, he's a polarising and divisive figure. He and Joe Biden both did extremely well to get the number of votes that they did at the last election. Ultimately, Joe Biden, no matter what Mr. Trump said, did win that election. At the moment, what happens with both parties, Republican and Democrats, is they nominate somebody to run for the presidency within their party. Now, for the Democrats, that really does look all but certain to be Joe Biden. And the same is true with the Republicans and Donald Trump, because despite his legal woes, his nearest rival is a gentleman called Ron DeSantis. He's the Florida governor, and he's kind of 37 points roughly behind Donald Trump at the moment. So it's limbering up, notwithstanding the many legal troubles, to look like it might be a sort of a rerun of the candidates, at least, in Donald Trump and Joe Biden for next year's election. Anything, of course, anything could happen between them, but it seems so far that legal woes haven't dissuaded Mr. Trump from running. And actually, as he's pointed out himself in interviews, even if he were convicted of a crime, he's not been at the moment, innocent until proven guilty, as Jack Smith said, even if he were convicted of a crime and sent to prison, it wouldn't stop him campaigning and even serving as president from behind bars in that scenario.
Which is just an extraordinary thought, isn't it? Sean Dilley, thank you so much, our correspondent based in Washington.